Have you ever wondered why so many people spend their entire lives wearing a mask, yet call it identity? Why they silence their truth just to blend in? Why they shrink their dreams down to the size of what feels safe, only to wake up years later wondering why life feels hollow, why nothing seems real anymore? It's not that they are lost, no. The deeper truth is, they've never had the courage to meet the version of themselves buried beneath all the noise. And here's the part that stings the most, that version of you? It's still alive, still waiting. But every time you avoid discomfort, every time you scroll past your potential, every time you laugh when you actually want to speak, or settle when you were meant to build, that version sinks deeper into the shadows. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." So, ask yourself honestly, what have you been settling for? Because the distance between the life you're tolerating and the life you were born to create, it's not as wide as you think. It's just one decision wide. And if some part of you knows that's true, if it hits somewhere beneath the surface, deeper than words, then you are exactly where you need to be. And if messages like this, if wake-up calls like thighs resonate with you, if they pull you back to your center, there's a small, free way to support this space. Hit that subscribe button. Let's keep going deeper. Because there's a moment that arrives in all our lives. It's quiet, it's sneaky, it comes unexpectedly, often on a random Tuesday, where you realize you've been living in between, not fully in, not fully out. One foot chasing potential, the other foot anchored in comfort. And it creeps in, disguised as balance, as being practical, as being polite. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid their entire lives. You can't do both. You can't cling to safety and still expect to fly. You can't numb discomfort and still expect clarity. Life doesn't reward half measures. It's a game of trade-offs. Whether you're ready to admit it or not, every decision you make is a door you walk through. And by walking through one, you are, by default, closing another. That's not negativity. That's reality. Saying yes to comfort? That's you saying no to growth. Saying yes to endless distractions? That's you actively rejecting focus. Scrolling endlessly isn't harmless. It's not a break. It's a choice to postpone your own progress. You don't get to become your best self and still cling to the habits that are keeping you average. Epictetus said it clearly, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that mastery? It doesn't come from convenience. It comes from conviction. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Think about that for a moment. We'll watch 10 hours of other people's curated lives before we sit quietly with our own. We'll overcommit to plans and people that mean nothing, just to avoid the silence that might tell us something we're not ready to hear. But here's the truth. Hiding doesn't make the truth disappear. It just makes the pain of not growing louder over time. Aristotle believed that excellence isn't an act, it's a habit. It's something we become by consistently choosing what aligns with our values. That means you don't just wake up one day in perfect alignment. You build it choice by choice. And every time you choose ease over effort, noise over stillness, comfort over courage, you're making a very real decision. You are not floating. You're drifting in a direction, whether you want to see it or not. So, Here's the hard line. You can either be who they want you to be, or you can be who you truly are. But you can't be both. You can't chase validation and authenticity at the same time. One will always betray the other. And if you keep contorting yourself to fit into someone else's mold, you will slowly forget the shape of your own soul. Plato warned us that the price of apathy toward public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. But let's bring that closer to home. The price of apathy towards your own affairs is to be ruled by distraction, by fear, by everything external. And that's not just unfortunate, it's tragic, because the alternative, it's right in front of you. Conscious, deliberate choice, choosing presence over avoidance, choosing the hard thing that builds you instead of the easy thing that drains you. So, what's it going to be? You don't have to answer out loud. Not now. But from this moment forward, every decision, what you say yes to, what you ignore, what you tolerate, is either building the person you want to become or pulling you further away from them. There is no neutral. And the people who thrive in this life, the ones who lead with clarity, who sleep with peace, they made the hard choice to stop living in the in-between. Like Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your mind is filled with noise, avoidance, and indecision, your life will reflect exactly that. But if your thoughts are rooted in purpose, direction, and courage, even the smallest actions will feel like momentum. The world isn't asking you to be perfect. It's just asking you to choose. There's this subtle, convincing, and incredibly dangerous lie we tell ourselves. It whispers, "Wait until you're ready," as if one day you'll wake up fearless, fully equipped, entirely certain of yourself. But that day, it doesn't exist. Not the way you think it will. Because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And most of the time, you'll have to leap before it ever shows up. People confuse courage with confidence, but they're nothing alike. Confidence is the reward you earn after you've done the hard thing. Courage? Courage is what shows up in the silence. When your voice shakes, when your heart races, when your brain screams, "Don't do it!" and you say yes anyway. You walk toward the fear, not because you're fearless, but because you've decided that fear doesn't get to decide for you anymore. Carl Jung said it well. What you resist persists. And he was right. The more you avoid the thing, the louder it becomes. Fear doesn't shrink when you ignore it. It burrows deeper. So that dream you keep putting off, that conversation you keep dodging, that version of yourself you're terrified to meet, every delay gives the fear more room to grow. We don't grow when we're comfortable, and we certainly don't grow when we're certain. Plato once wrote that courage is knowing what not to fear. But in today's world, we fear everything that isn't guaranteed. We fear failure, judgment, rejection. So we wait. We tell ourselves we need more time, more money, more training, more clarity. But deep down, we know the truth. What we really need is less fear and more movement. Think about that girl standing on stage, hands trembling, voice cracking, reading her poetry to strangers for the very first time. You think she was ready? Not a chance. But she did it anyway. Not because she felt bulletproof, but because something inside finally said, enough. Enough hiding, enough waiting, enough letting fear write the script. That's courage. Socrates once said, to move the world, first move yourself. But most of us? We're waiting for the world to give us a sign. To roll out a red carpet and say, now you may begin. That's not how life works. If anything, life waits for you to move first. To take the uncomfortable step. To raise your hand. To speak your truth. And once you do, that's when the shift begins. And yes, you will stumble. There's no clean start, no perfect launch. You'll probably screw it up. You'll look awkward. You'll doubt yourself. But you'll also learn. You'll build muscle, the kind that only comes from action. The Stoics taught us that virtue is action. Not thoughts, not feelings, action. Seneca said it best. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. So, ask yourself, what have you been putting off? Not because you can't, but because you think you're not ready? And what if readiness isn't even real? What if it's just fear wearing a mask that looks like logic? The truth is, everyone you admire, the ones who built something meaningful, who stepped into their purpose, they started scared too. The difference? They didn't wait. They didn't ask for certainty. They moved. They acted. They dared. And maybe, just maybe today, is the day you do the same. No dramatic transformation, no perfect moment, just one shaky, brave, imperfect step forward. And remember where we left off? That brutal but honest realization that the life you're tolerating is only one decision away from the life you're meant to live. Now, let's take that deeper. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And the next step? It's not about becoming someone new. It's about returning. Returning to the parts of yourself you've buried under layers of noise, under endless comparison, under years of trying to live someone else's definition of success. You see, this pressure to find yourself, it's everywhere, isn't it? But what if that's the wrong lens entirely? What if you're not lost? What if you're just distracted? Think about it. When was the last time you sat with yourself? No phone, no music, no distractions, no filters, just you and your thoughts? Most people avoid that silence like it's radioactive. But here's the paradox. That silence? That's home. That's where your instincts live. That's where clarity begins to whisper truths most people spend their entire lives running from. Carl Jung captured it perfectly when he said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakes." And it's true. We spend so much of our lives chasing more achievements, more approval, more stuff, believing that if we just do enough, buy enough, please enough people, maybe then we'll finally feel whole. But wholeness? It was never out there. It was always inside. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." Your real power isn't in becoming something new. It's in remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And if that hits a nerve, good. That means that part of you is still alive, still waiting. The problem is, we've become experts at pretending. We perform. We adapt. We mirror what we think will be accepted. But performance comes at a cost. The more time you spend playing a role, the harder it becomes to recognize your own voice beneath the noise. And eventually, you wake up feeling hollow, disconnected even when your life looks perfect from the outside. Plato taught that knowledge isn't something poured into use, it's something drawn out. Truth isn't added, it's uncovered. That's what self-awareness is. It's not about constructing some shiny new version of yourself. It's about peeling back the layers until you meet the part that was always there. The unfiltered you. The one who doesn't care about likes or algorithms. The one who just is. And that part of you? It already knows. It knows what lights you up. What makes you feel alive. What makes you feel out of alignment. But we mute it. Every single time we compromise what we believe to keep the peace. Every time we say yes when our soul is screaming no. Every time we chase what looks good instead of what feels right. Socrates said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." Yet most of us spend more time studying strangers online than exploring our own hearts. That's the paradox. We want meaning, but we're looking everywhere except within. We think the answer is in the next job, the next relationship, the next upgraded version of ourselves. But the next version? It's not ahead. It's buried. Buried under layers of avoidance. So, what would happen if you just stopped? Not gave up? Stopped? Paused? What if you turned down the volume of the world and finally listened to yourself? You'd remember. You'd remember that you already have the wisdom, the instincts, the clarity. You've just forgotten how to trust them. The Stoics believed in self-sufficiency, not in a cold, isolated way, but in a deeply empowering one. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need another course or another guru to tell you what's already been living inside you all along. And once you start acting from that place, life stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a return. You don't have to become something to be worthy. You just need to remember what's already true. There's something powerful, liberating even in realizing that no one's coming to finish the story for you. That this, your life, is yours to write. Line by line. Choice by choice. You're not just a character in someone else's script. You're the author, the narrator, the artist. And whether you've forgotten or not, the brush has always been in your hands. But we forget, don't we? Life piles on mistakes, disappointments, regrets. They start to feel like chains, like proof that we're stuck, that we're broken. But that's just another illusion. The Stoics taught us not to mourn the past, but to use it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That means the very thing you think is holding you back, it's your raw material, your next step. Your missteps aren't anchors, they're texture. They're the brushstrokes that give your painting depth. Make it real. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That shift, that's everything. You can stare at your past like it's a prison. Or you can pick up the brush and paint over it. Not to erase it, but to transform it. Every painful chapter, every wrong turn, every scar, they're not dead weight. They're depth. They're the shades and shadows that make the masterpiece real. And don't get caught up in the pressure to have the whole masterpiece figured out today. That's another trap. You're not supposed to see the final version yet. You're just supposed to start. Even if your hand shakes, even if the first few strokes look awkward, messy, uncertain, no one creates anything beautiful without first being willing to look awkward. Aristotle believed that excellence is formed through habit, not grand, dramatic moments, but small, consistent choices. So the question isn't, will it be perfect? The question is, will you begin? Plato reminded us, the beginning is the most important part of the work. And yet, that's the part we fear the most. We stall. We overthink. We wait for the right timing, the perfect tools, the flawless mood. But you don't need any of that. What you need is movement. The act of showing up despite the uncertainty. That's courage. Not loud and fearless, but quiet, persistent, and unwilling to surrender. Socrates taught not just to know yourself, but to act on that knowing. Because what's the use of insight if it never becomes momentum? What's the point of learning if you don't use it to create something new? The past? It won't rewrite itself. But you? You can write something new, right now, and it won't be clean. It won't make sense right away, but it will be yours. And that's what makes it powerful. So don't wait for clarity. Don't wait until you feel ready. Pick up the brush. Use the chaos. Use the heartbreak. Use the lessons. The canvas? It's already in front of you whether you acknowledge it or not. And every second you hesitate,